They say every town has a haunted place, a secret only whispered about late at night. In the town of Ashford, Massachusetts, that place was Hollow Creek High School. When I first moved there in the fall of 2006, I didn't believe the stories. The school looked like any other red brick American high school. Long hallways lined with gray lockers, basketball banners from the 90s gathering dust in the gym, and a football field that turned to mud every time it rained. On the surface, it was painfully ordinary, but Ashford locals never called it by name. They called it something else. The school that doesn't forget. At the time, I laughed. Now, I wish I hadn't. Before we jump into today's story, drop a quick comment, tell me your name, where you're watching from. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and share it with your friends. All right, let's get into the story. I was 16 when I transferred to Hollow Creek High. My dad's job had dragged us from town to town, each one smaller than the last, until we landed in Ashford, a village so quiet that the only place open past 8 p.m. was a 24-hour gas station. The school itself sat on the edge of the woods, a looming 4-story building with windows so tall they looked like the eyes of a watchful giant. On my first day, walking past the rusting front gates, I got a strange sensation, like stepping into a place where the air itself remembered who had walked before. The students weren't welcoming. They kept their voices low, whispering as if the walls could hear them. When I asked about the rumors on my second day, someone finally told me. They say Hollow Creek was built on the ruins of an old asylum. Some of the patients never left. I laughed. They didn't. The first real incident happened 2 weeks later. I was given detention after skipping gym. That meant staying late in the sprawling, nearly empty building while the sun went down behind the woods. The teacher assigned to monitor us, Miss Klein, left us alone with a board warning, "Don't wander, stay in your seats." But I couldn't. The silence of those hallways was unbearable. The fluorescent lights hummed above me, flickering in odd, jerky rhythms. I wandered toward the old wing of the school, the one that nobody ever used anymore. A heavy door marked B-Wing creaked open when I pushed it. Inside, the corridor was colder. Dust smothered the air. The lockers were dented, some hanging open like mouths waiting to swallow. At the far end, I thought I saw a figure, thin, pale, barely visible against the dark. Then came the whisper, "Stay." It was so faint, I wanted to believe it was just my imagination, but I wasn't imagining the locker door slamming shut next to me. I wasn't imagining the way the lights went out one by one, rushing towards me like something swallowing the hall. I bolted back to the detention room. I didn't say a word. After that, I couldn't let it go. I searched the library archives, hidden in dust-coated filing cabinets. That's when I found the old newspaper clippings. Hollow Creek Asylum, founded in 1921. Shut down in 1954 after a fire allegedly killed 13 patients locked in the basement wards. The article included blurry photos of the building, blackened walls, barred windows, tall trees curving toward its roof. I froze when I saw the images. It was the same lot where the school now stood. There was one line that chilled me most. Though bodies were never recovered, neighbors report screams still echoing from the ruins on quiet autumn nights. The asylum hadn't been emptied. It had been buried and then built over. My school wasn't just haunted. It was standing on the bones of the forgotten. October came, and with it colder nights and mist that clung to the football field. Students began to whisper about strange noises, locker doors banging at midnight, footsteps in empty stairwells, or voices calling their names when no one was there. On one Monday morning, I opened my assigned locker to find something waiting inside. A handprint. But it wasn't like any normal handprint. It was too long, the fingers stretched, burned into the metal like soot. I reached up and touched it. My hand came away blackened with ash. The exact same day, 3 other students discovered the same prints inside their lockers, each black, each smearing into ash when touched. By lunch, everyone knew. By afternoon, half the students had gone home sick. Her name was Caroline. White. A quiet junior with straight dark hair, usually hiding in the back of class with her sketchbook. One Thursday morning, she didn't show up. By the second day, her locker was sealed off with caution tape. By the third day, the whispers began again. They took her. No, she went into B wing. Don't you know? No one comes out? I didn't want to believe it, but deep down, I knew they were right.
That weekend, I came back to the school at night with a flashlight. I waited until my parents were asleep, then biked through the empty town streets under a full October moon. I got inside through a broken window near the gym. The school felt alive at night. The lockers seemed to shift closer, the air pressed tight against my ribs, and the smell of smoke hung everywhere like a ghost that wouldn't go away. Then I heard her, not with words, but with sobs. Faint, desperate crying echoing from B wing. Toward the same hall where I'd seen the pale figure weeks earlier, I followed. At the end of the B wing hall, behind a locked fire door, I found the basement. Rusted stairs groaned beneath my weight as I descended into complete darkness. The air was thick with rot and mold, but beneath that was something worse. The stench of smoke, as if the fire had never truly gone out. My flashlight beam flickered. The walls down there weren't brick like the rest of the school. They were black stone, scarred and burned from a time before the school was built. Carved into the walls were names that weren't students. Names and numbers, patient codes. Patient 12, patient 34, patient 56. Every few feet was another. That's when I saw her sketchbook lying in the dirt, Caroline's. And then I saw them. Figures in hospital gowns, tall and too thin, skin gray as paper, mouths stretched silently, eyes completely black. They weren't walking, they were gliding toward me, their bodies twitching unnaturally like flames frozen in air. One reached out a hand. Its fingers brushed my arm, scorching my skin like hot ash. I ran. On Monday morning, the principal's voice came over the loudspeaker in a tremor. Caroline had been declared missing by the authorities. Local police swarmed the school, questioning students and sealing off the old B wing. But they didn't find the basement. They didn't see the burned walls or the skeletal patients moving in the dark. And they didn't see what I saw next. Caroline, standing at the edge of the football field at dawn. Her body pale and silent, eyes empty black, watching me. When I blinked, she was gone. Rumors spread like wildfire. Students started skipping school. Parents whispered about transferring their kids. Then the fire alarms began to go off. Every day, sometimes twice, shrieking even when the no smoke was present. Until one day, there was smoke. Dense, choking black smoke that filled the corridors. Kids screamed and rushed for the doors, but as I staggered through the smoke, I saw their faces. The same burned patients from the basement, walking calmly through the flames. Hands outstretched, whispering in unison, "Stay." Hollow Creek High shut down for good in late 2006 after a second electrical fire that destroyed half of B wing. That's the official explanation, anyway. Families left the town in droves. The building still stands, hollow and abandoned, guarded with iron fences and no trespassing signs. I've never gone back, but sometimes when I close my eyes, I still hear the whispers. They say Hollow Creek never forgets, and I believe them. Classes resumed after the fire, though most of the school was running on half a schedule. The B ring was sealed with chains, padlocks, and an ugly metal barricade bolted into place. But everyone knew that wouldn't last. The whispers carried further now. Even during the day, when the cafeteria buzzed and teachers droned on, you could hear faint murmurs, like the school itself was breathing under its skin. That's when the substitute appeared, Mr. Harris. At least, that's what he called himself. Mid-30s, pale, with a voice like cloth tearing. Nobody remembered him being hired, and nobody saw him arrive. His first day, he replaced my English teacher. He didn't take attendance. He didn't hand out assignments. He just stood in front of us, staring, before whispering, "Words linger. Buildings linger. Dust remembers." The class sat in silence, each of us too uneasy to speak. His eyes moved from face to face, but when they stopped on me, I felt the air grow colder. That night, I dreamt of him standing in the basement among the burned patients, smiling. It was the Friday before Halloween when it happened again. Ben Radley, the loudmouth football player who loved to shove freshmen into lockers, didn't come home after practice. His car was found in the parking lot, keys still in the ignition. On Monday, his girlfriend swore she had seen him, or what looked like him, standing outside her house at 2 a.m. He didn't move, didn't knock, didn't even breathe. Just stood under the oak tree watching her window until the streetlight blinked off and he wasn't there anymore. The next day, another burned handprint appeared. This time not on a locker, on the metal bleachers of the football field.
By now, Hollow Creek High had lost half its students. Parents pulled their children out, leaving classrooms half empty. But for those of us left behind, the fear was constant. One night, 3 of us decided to investigate together. Myself, Mara, a sharp, restless girl with black nail polish and a fearless streak, and Jordan, quiet, soft-spoken, always carrying headphones around his neck. Mara said what we were all avoiding. They're not random. They're choosing. Caroline, Ben, probably more before them. Whoever or whatever was left from the asylum wants us to take their place. Jordan stared at the barricaded B-wing doors. Then why is it worse now? Because, I said, my voice catching in my throat, it's not the fire they're tied to. It's us, the living. The fire just woke them up again. Mara smirked, trying to hide her unease. Then I guess we go say hello. We broke in at midnight, the 3 of us slipping past the rusted back fence with flashlights. Inside, the school moaned around us like it hated being entered. Our shoes echoed on tile, but there were other footsteps too, ones never matching ours. When we reached the basement, we made a discovery, a doorway none of us had seen before. Half hidden under a collapsed beam, the concrete wall had cracked open, revealing a stairwell spiraling further down. The room at the bottom wasn't a basement. It was a ward, an asylum ward left untouched. Rusted bed frames, restraints clinging to walls, a jagged painting of God scrolled in ash. And in the middle of it all, a door marked Ward X. It had no knob, just a slit large enough for air to seep through. And from inside, all 3 of us heard the same thing. Our names, whispered, one after the other. Mara, Jordan, Evan. I dropped the flashlight. My blood froze, because the voice wasn't one voice. It was all the voices of everyone who disappeared.
We should have run. Any sane person would have. But the slit in the door began to glow, spilling ash-colored light across the floor. We stumbled back, but Jordan froze. His headphones slipped from his neck as his body stiffened like a puppet. The whispers grew louder. They didn't call our names anymore. They repeated just one word. Stay. 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 Jordan turned to us, but his eyes weren't his anymore. They were hollow black pits, the same as Caroline's. Before we could pull him back, he stepped calmly toward the glowing slit in Ward X and pressed his hand against the door. The air exploded in screams as the iron surface burned red, and then Jordan was gone, swallowed by the light. Mara screamed his name until her voice cracked. The door pulsed once more and went dark. Only 2 of us were left. The next morning, the principal announced Jordan had run away. Everyone knew it was a lie, the same lie they'd told about Caroline, about Ben, about others before. But Mara and I weren't satisfied. We went deeper. We searched the principal's office, breaking into locked file cabinets that smelled of mildew and stale smoke. Inside were folders stamped with the town's insignia, dating back decades. Documents no high school should have. Patient records. Every missing student's name was listed, cross-referenced with asylum files. Caroline White aligned with Patient 34. Ben Radley matched Patient 12. Jordan's name had already been penciled in beside Patient 56. Hollow Creek High hadn't been built by accident. It was designed as a trap, a continuation of the asylum, feeding it new bodies every generation. October 31st arrived. The town was shrouded in fog, and the school stood against it like a tombstone. That night, Mara and I returned for the final time, each of us armed with more than just flashlights. She brought a crowbar. I brought matches and lighter fluid. We weren't going to run. We were going to burn it all down. The hallways were waiting for us. Lockers slammed on their own, windows split into black cracks, and that burned handprint pulsed like a heartbeat across the floor tiles. As we moved toward Ward X, the figures came, more than I'd ever seen before. Dozens of skeletal patients, their bodies twisted, mouths stretching too wide, and eyes nothing but pits. And at the front was Jordan, pale and hollow, whispering, "Stay." Mara swung her crowbar at Jordan, screaming his name, but he didn't bleed. He didn't even flinch. Something inside him was gone. I splashed lighter fluid across the beds, the cracked walls, the door of Ward X itself. My hands trembled as I struck the match. The shadow surged toward me, but the flame caught. Fire roared through the ward with a fury that felt alive. Smoke bled from the ceiling. The patients shrieked, recoiling, their forms flickering into ash one by one. But Ward X didn't burn. It opened.
From the ash-bright slit came a shape, taller than any human, burning from the inside out, its mouth stitched shut, yet screaming through the silence. The fire bent toward it like worship. It stepped 1 foot into the hall, and the air itself warped. That's when Mara forced the crowbar into my hands and shoved me toward the exit. "Run!" she screamed. "If someone survives, it can't come back." I hesitated, but then the floor collapsed beneath her, swallowing her into the flames. I ran. The fire consumed Hollow Creek High that night. The town's official report blamed faulty wiring. No mention of Ward X, no mention of Mara or Jordan or Caroline. I never spoke to anyone about it. My parents moved again, and I left Ashford behind. But sometimes, in quiet moments, I can still smell the smoke. I can still hear their voices calling me back. Because Hollow Creek doesn't forget. And one day, it will come looking again. 10 years passed. I thought I had escaped. I thought that leaving Ashford behind, changing towns and schools again, would mean leaving Hollow Creek High in the ashes where it belonged. but the human mind doesn't bury things that easily. Every October, I dream of the fire, of Mara's scream as the floor gave way, of Jordan's black eyes, of Caroline's silent face at dawn. By the time I turned 26, people called me paranoid. My apartment windows stayed locked. I never used lockers, refused to stand close to stairwells, and kept the lights on no matter the cost of electricity. That is until the letter arrived. Unmarked envelope, no stamp. Just slipped under my door one night. Inside was a single sheet of lined notebook paper, yellowed with time. On it were 3 words scrawled in ash. We still wait. Within weeks, I wasn't the only one. Mara's younger brother contacted me. He'd found my name scribbled in one of her old journals, tucked inside a box her mother kept. His voice shook over the phone when he said, "She used to tell me about you, and about the school. I thought she was exaggerating until last month. Now, the house smells like smoke every night. My little sister swears she hears whispers in the halls." His words froze me. Hollow Creek was trying again. That was when I agreed to return to Ashford, not alone, but with 3 others who also carried scars, survivors in different ways. Mara's younger brother, Daniel, Caroline's cousin, Ellie, and a man named Thomas, who'd been one of the janitors back in 2006, the one who'd quit the week after the final fire. The 4 of us met in late October under gray skies and leafless trees. None of us wanted to be there, but we all knew the same truth. The fire hadn't destroyed Hollow Creek. It had only fed it. The school's ruins still stood, fenced off with "Do Not Enter" signs and warning tape, none of which kept us out. Windows hollowed, walls blackened, ceilings open to the sky. But as I stepped inside, the smell hit me. The same ash and smoke, the same whispers. This time, however, the building didn't groan in anger. It sighed in relief. It had been waiting for us. We found it again. The basement wasn't as burned as the rest of the building. The ward remained, scorched but intact, black walls still carved with patient codes. And at the very end, half buried under rubble, Ward X still pulsed faintly like a heart that refused to stop. Ellie clutched my arm. "Do you hear them?" She didn't need to ask. Yes, I heard them all. Caroline, Mara, Jordan, Ben. Their voices layered and broken, whispering in perfect unison. "Stay." Suddenly the rubble shifted. Someone, or something, was trying to push the door open from the inside. The ash light slit widened. A thin, pale arm slid through. Its handprint burned against the floor. Daniel panicked first. He swung the crowbar we'd brought, trying to smash the door shut. The wall cracked, but the arm didn't vanish. Instead, another followed, then a third, then dozens, all of them clawing their way out of Ward X, stretching thin fingers toward us. Thomas tried to pull Daniel back, but he was too close. The hands grabbed him. His body froze like Jordan's had years ago. His throat didn't scream. His eyes burned hollow black. Before we could reach him, Daniel smiled a smile that wasn't his and whispered with a voice that belonged to everyone else.
It was just 3 of us now. Ellie, Thomas, and me. Standing in the ruins of the school while dozens of burned patients pressed against the opening of Ward X, their heads tilted in perfect synchronicity. Their mouths open, stretching wider and wider until they weren't even human anymore. Ellie clutched the lighter fluid. "We finish it. This time, we burn the heart itself." Thomas shook his head violently. "No, fire only feeds it. That's what you don't understand. Fire woke it the first time. Burning the school just gave it power. The only way is not to fight, but to seal, to sacrifice."
I looked at him. What? Sacrifice what? He didn't answer. He just looked at me. The whispers grew louder. The arm of something larger was pushing now, cracking the frame of Ward X wider. Not patients, not students, not anything human. Something older, something hungry. It was going to get out. Ellie didn't hesitate. She emptied the lighter fluid at the base of Ward X and struck the match before Thomas could stop her. The world erupted. Flames roared across the ward again, stronger than before. The figures shrieked and burned, but as their forms dissolved, they didn't vanish. They screamed their way into the walls, the floor, the very air. Ward X itself cracked. Its surface split like shattered glass. Through it, I saw an endless stretch of corridors, miles of hallways lined with doors, every one of them whispering. Patients, students, generations, and at the very center, a voice as deep as the earth. You can never leave. The fire expanded, blinding me. Ellie was gone, Thomas too. Everything was ash and screaming. I thought I was gone too, until suddenly I was outside, coughing, in the ruins, alone. It has been years since the ruins fell for the second time. Authorities fenced them off again. The official record says the old structure was demolished, but that's not true. Because last night, walking home from my night shift, I passed a new construction site. A brand new high school being built 2 towns over, and spray-painted, hidden under the scaffolding, were 2 words written in ash. Ward X. The fire didn't destroy Hollow Creek. It only spread it. And this time, there won't be any escaping. Because schools never forget. And the halls are always waiting. I never thought I'd write this down. Part of me believes that if I record it, if I give words to what I've seen, it'll root the horror deeper into the world instead of leaving it buried. But another part of me knows that silence only lets it spread unchecked. The whispers live inside silence. They swim in it, waiting. So I write. For me. For anyone who finds this after I'm gone. Ward X was never a room, not really. It was a door, a threshold, a vein running beneath Hollow Creek, feeding off pain, fear, and memory. Every scream, every missing student, it kept them. And it wanted more. And I think it still wants me. It begins subtly, always the same way. First, the smell. That faint sting of smoke, even in places where no fire has burned for years. Then comes the ash. It floats in light as snowfall, though no chimney or wildfire is anywhere close. Ash in my sink, ash on the windowsill. One morning I found it smeared across my bathroom mirror in the shape of a crooked handprint. What's worse? Every October, the whispers return. Not in school hallways anymore, but in parking garages, stairwells, anywhere liminal and echoing. They don't just say stay anymore. They change. They say my name. After years of silence, I heard from Thomas again. I thought he'd died in the fire with Ellie. But last month, I received an envelope, thin and brittle, postmarked from a tiny Nevada town. Inside was a single piece of paper. Don't let them open another school. Ward X moves. It follows foundations. They don't need Hollow Creek anymore. They only need ground. The more children, the stronger it grows. Tell no one, or it will find you sooner.
It wasn't signed, but I knew his handwriting. And then 3 days later, I saw him, not in person, on the local news. A man burned alive inside his trailer. Neighbors claimed they heard voices inside the fire. Too many voices for one man. Thomas hadn't escaped. None of us would. They finished building Ashford Regional High last week. Bright, sterile, modern, walls painted cream, gleaming new lockers, spotless championship banners already waiting in the gym. Parents smile, convinced the nightmare of Hollow Creek was left behind in its ashes. I walk by at night sometimes, and I swear I see figures in the top windows, tall, pale, thin, tilting their heads too far, waiting. The plaque outside reads, "Dedicated to knowledge, growth, and the future." But when I touched the engraved stone, my fingers came away black with soot.
Last night, Mara spoke to me. Not in a dream, not in the echoes. She sat on the edge of my bed as clearly as if she'd never fallen through the flames. Hair long and dark, jacket torn, her eyes hollow. "You know it can't be stopped," she whispered. "The school grows because children don't stop. They'll always build more, always fill them. That's what feeds it. The endless cycle of classrooms, hallways, lockers, bells." I tried to touch her. She turned to ash in my hands. Before she vanished, her voice dropped one more sentence into me like a hook. "The next to vanish will be you." I don't know how long I have. I've thought of fire, of chains, of demolition. But none of it matters. Ward X isn't a single building anymore. It's the idea of a school. Anywhere children gather under roofs of brick and plaster, wherever hallways stretch too long and too empty, it seeps in. It remembers. So my only choice isn't to fight it. It's to confess it, to leave behind testimony. Not to silence the whispers, but to make them undeniable. To warn you who read this that when your school's lights flicker, when your doors slam shut, when your locker creaks open by itself, don't wait. Don't whisper back. Because that's how it finds you first. This will be my last entry. I hear them outside my door now. Soft shoes scuffing the hallway where no one should walk at this hour. The doorknob trembles like a living thing. Through the crack beneath it, ash has already begun to slip, forming letters across the wooden floor. They spell one word: stay. And I know as I grip this pen tighter that Hollow Creek hasn't ended. It never will. The document you've just read wasn't found in a library, it wasn't in an archive or newspaper vault. It was discovered in the ruins of an Ashford apartment in the summer of 2023 after a fire whose cause was never determined. Pieces of it were charred, many pages blackened into flakes of nothing, but some remained legible. Kept in a police evidence box until a local historian unearthed them years later while researching the Hollow Creek asylum fires. The manuscript was written in a hand that trembles toward the end, ink bleeding into burns, unfinished sentences trailing off like strangled whispers. The last page contained only one final note, scrawled sideways in desperate, uneven strokes. They are not bound to Hollow Creek. They are bound to us. Every school is theirs. Every hallway we build, every locker we open, we give them passage. Beneath that message, in smaller script almost hidden in the smoke stains, 4 names were signed: Caroline White, Ben Radley, Jordan Price, Mara Blue. Their signatures should not have been possible. Each had long been declared legally dead.
Yet the names were written in unmistakable handwriting, different from the narrators. And after that came one last line burned deeper into the paper than ink ever could pierce. Class is not dismissed. The story of Hollow Creek High never truly ended. Parents still whisper in Ashford about ash drifting onto their children's desks. Security cameras in the new high school catch lockers opening by themselves at night, but the footage always erases itself by morning. And whenever someone dares to step into the abandoned ruins of the old school, they report the same thing. In the distance, from beneath the rubble, from a place where no air should move and no voices should echo, they hear the word again. Stay.